Oh wait, I'm going live. Okay, hello everyone. We're live. So we went live right as Chris joined. So if Chris wanted to say something before the live stream began, he had no opportunity to do that. Yeah. So now, Chris, you're on the public record. Anything you say can and will be used in the court of law. You have the right to remain silent. Okay, so after we had so much fun with the long-termism video of Hossenfelder, we decided that we would like to refute another Hossenfelder video in which she says things that are false, as she's wont to do. So, without further ado, I bring you this video.
Today I want to explain why the multiverse is religion. This is not a polemical argument, and it is not meant as an insult. But believing...
Oh, I take it as an insult, as a believer in the multiverse.
It's a very funny framing starting out. Just the way she looks kind of small with the background, and then just showing that today I want to explain why the multiverse is not science. This is not intended to be polemical.
Believing in the multiverse is logically equivalent to believing in God, and therefore it is religion, not science.
Okay, so if there is, so we have just as much reason to...
Yeah, there is a multiverse if and only if there is a God.
Yeah.
That's a logical proof. That's a tautology. That's a tautology.
To see why, let me pull together what I laid out in my previous videos. Scientists say that something exists if it is useful to describe observations.
Well, Chris, do scientists say something exists if it is useful to describe observation?
Yeah, well, if you interpret that as scientists say something exists if it figures in the best explanation of our observations, then I would endorse that thesis.
Yes.
But then that thesis very well may support the existence of a multiverse.
Right, and it's also the case, it's the things that we posit don't directly have to explain anything. The things can be posited by our best theories, and then our best theories can necessitate that those things exist, right? So,
yeah, well, in some sense, they do explain things, or it's like you explain, you posit one thing that is a bunch of parts, and then, and you don't directly observe every single part of it, but it's a better explanation to assume there's the one big thing as opposed to there's just the tiny slice or whatever, like saying that the past doesn't exist.
Yeah.
We never directly observe the past.
I mean, but on the simple reductive version of Hossenfelder's account, numbers exist, but only the ones that are useful to us. So Graham's number exists, but Graham's number minus 1, that doesn't exist because it's not useful.
By useful, I mean it is simpler than just collecting data. You can
Wait, that's what she means by useful? What?
Yeah, well, it's a little unclear what that means.
Wait,
Scientists say that something exists if it is useful to describe observations. By useful, I mean it is simpler than just collecting data. You can postulate the existence of things that are not useful to describe observations, such as gods, but this is no longer science.
Yeah, well, this definitely overgeneralizes to the past. You can postulate that the past exists as this, thing that used to exist or that does exist, but that's just like believing in God. You never observe that. That's just some extra stuff.
Yeah, all that you have are memories of the past, but you don't know if those memories came natural.
Yeah, the study of science, the scientists who study dinosaurs are really just making predictions about what fossils we'll find. they aren't making any claims about some dinosaurs that existed hundreds of years, millions of years
Look,
ago.
you can believe that things have happened at previous points, but at that point, that's not science, that's religion. If that's religion, then sign me up. I'll start going to the church that believes in the past.
Universes besides our own are logically equivalent to gods. They are unobservable by assumption, therefore they can exist only in a religious sense.
But if our best explanations posit them, even if they don't explain anything, if our best explanation, if the following claim is true, X is useful. If X is true, then Y is true. Therefore, and if X is useful, then we should believe X, and we get X. Therefore, or we should believe X. Therefore,
if we should believe all the entailments of the things that we should believe, then we should believe in Y.
No, we should only believe the useful entailments.
Yeah.
You can believe in them if you want to, but they are not part of science. I know that this is not a particularly remarkable argument, but...
No, it's not remarkable at all. I'd say it's one of the most unremarkable arguments I've ever heard. I don't remark on it because of how unremarkable it is.
But physicists seem to have a hard time following it, especially those who happen to work on the multiverse. Therefore, let me sort out some common misunderstandings. First, the major
I think it's funny that she's presents this as being marketed to other physicists. It's a 4-minute, very simplistic video. Hopefully other physicists won't be swayed by this.
Misunderstanding is that I'm saying the multiverse does not exist. But this is not what I'm saying.
Would she say God doesn't exist? No, she would say it's maybe meaningless or it's pointless. But yeah, it's worth flagging that the argument she's presenting is very close to what the logical positivists believe that.
Yeah. I mean, you have to, if she claims that believing in the multiverse is just like believing in God, then she either has to say that believing in God is reject the claim that God doesn't exist.
Yeah, but she would want to say that God isn't supported by any evidence. But there isn't any evidence that disconfirms God's existence.
But she would presumably say that God probably doesn't exist.
Maybe I'm not sure actually. If she sticks to this line, then I think she wouldn't say that.
I'm saying science does not tell us anything about universes we cannot observe. Therefore, claiming that they exist is not science.
Science does. Make the simplest theory that explains the data. That theory necessitates some other thing. Then we believe that other thing, obviously.
Second, they will argue the multiverse is simple. Most physicists who are in favor of the multiverse say it's scientific because it's simpler to assume all universes of a certain type exist than it is to assume that only one of them exists. That's a questionable claim to begin with, but more importantly, it's...
I don't know if is that why physicists think that there's a multiverse? I don't think so. Isn't it that the simplest equations that explain our observations, like the Schrodinger equation, if you just postulate that it works all the way up, then you get many worlds emerging naturally.
No, she's talking about the multiverse, which is different than the many worlds of quantum mechanics.
Oh, okay.
The multiverse, there are a bunch of there are different multiverse models, but you basically just have a bunch of different universes that are separate from each other and that maybe used to be connected, but now, starting from now, we'll never be able to communicate with with one of the other universes. And then with string theory, there's also an idea that the different multiverses each have different laws of physics that follow from the different possible solutions to the equations of string theory. And so that it's potentially an explanation for fine tuning.
Okay. Yeah, though, I mean, the question of whether it's simpler will just depend on a particular model of the fundamental laws in our universe versus the fundamental laws of the multiverse, which one is simpler. And that'll just depend on variables.
So the point, the simplest assumption is no assumption, and you do not need to make any statement about the existence of the multiverse to explain our observations. Therefore,
okay, but
yeah,
well, it's true
this
that
is also
maybe
true of the past.
If you didn't specify, that doesn't mean. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true of the past, and even if it's simpler, if you didn't specify, that doesn't mean. So, I mean, here's it's true that the theory that dinosaur bones were planted by Satan, or were not planted by Satan, is less simple than the theory just that there are dinosaur bones. But that does not mean that we should never like take the stance that dinosaur bones were not presented by Satan.
or science says, you should not make such an assumption. As I said, it's the same with the multiverse as with God. It's an unnecessary assumption, not wrong, but superfluous. You also do not need to.
Oh God, wagging this finger.
Yeah, well, so I think it's kind of like a weird taxonomy to think that you can break up these theories into assumptions, because really it's more like the multiverse. It's positing some equations and initial conditions, and it's not like the claims of the multiverse are like there's this universe and there's that universe and there's that universe. Really, no, the claim is just these are the initial conditions and these are the laws. And so then you would need to show why are your initial conditions and your laws a simpler theory, and that's not as easy, because that's really how you should be evaluating the simplicity, not because the theories aren't making claims about universes, they're making claims about like initial conditions.
Postulate.
It feels like every sentence that Hossenfelder says, there are just like many things wrong with. Well, I mean, just on the small number of topics, and so like you have to like several minutes unpack.
Although with this one, it's maybe many things disagreeable.
The existence of our universe, of course, no scientist ever does that. That would be totally ridiculous. Third, they will claim the existence of the multiverse is a prediction of their theory. It's not. That's just wrong. Theories do not predict what does and does not exist. We determine that something exists in the scientific sense if it is useful to describe observations. That's exactly what the multiverse is not.
Well, but the things that entail the multiverse, of which the multiverse is a prediction, are useful to describe data.
Fourth, but then you are saying that discussing what is inside a black hole is also not science. That's equally wrong. Other universes are not science because you cannot observe them, but you can totally observe what is inside a black hole. You just cannot come back and tell us about it. Besides, no one really thinks that the inside of a black hole will remain inaccessible forever.
But, okay,
Yeah,
well,
so
the first thing, let's imagine that black holes had a rim around the inside that was indestructible. We proved this with science, and so as a result, the inside of the black hole was something that would be impossible to discover, even in theory. But the simplest hypothesis was just that the inside of the black hole is just like, what we think the inside of the black hole is. And that explains the gravitational results. It's just a very collapsed star. In that case, would saying that the inside of the black hole is what it is not be science because we couldn't study it even in principle?
Well, she'd maybe be open to that. But this relates to
but then that's a crazy view.
A theme with logical positivists is that they wanted to say, so like we said stuff about like, oh well, we never actually are going to observe like the up close details on Pluto. because we're never going to be able to get there, or like in the next 100 years. So there is no fact of the matter about what Pluto looks like up close in the next 100 years. And so then they shifted to saying, okay, well, no, what we should evaluate is what in principle you could observe. But then this created a big problem, because then now they're making claims about now there needs to be objective facts about what you could do. And so like in the case of, and so then if we're taking that standard, then why isn't it exactly the case that like we could, teleport to another multiverse? And then you could say, okay, well, no, but you couldn't physically do that given our laws of the universe. But then given our laws of the universe and the initial conditions, but given our laws of the universe and our initial conditions, we're never going to get to Pluto in the next 100 years. So now there shouldn't be any fact about what Pluto looks like up close in the next 100 years. So there's just this internal tension that ends up kind of making the view untenable, but it's not obvious exactly that there is no way to resolve it, but it just becomes too hard to hold those two things simultaneously.
Yeah. Chris is a big warrior against logical positivists. He's apparently spent lots of time arguing with them on Reddit.
On the Ask Philosophy subreddit.
Yeah. So Chris is
on the Bad Philosophy subreddit, they were logical positivists.
Chris is a grizzled veteran in the logical positivism wars.
Yes.
Debunking the post-modern neo-positivists.
Well, so then the solution is just to say, whatever the theory posits, observable or not observable, that's the stuff that exists. And that includes the multiverse. Although it's debatable, though, there might be better theories that don't posit a multiverse. But she's making an argument that even if the simplest theory, posits a multiverse, it's not science.
The situation is entirely different for black holes. If it was correct that the inside of black holes cannot be observed, this would indeed mean that postulating its existence is not scientific. Fifth, but there are
so things when there are no eyes in the universe cannot be observed. So postulating that there were things when there were no eyes in the universe is not scientific. Well, I guess not just eyes, like ways of
or the past.
Or like sentient being. Yeah, this applies to the past and sentient being.
Types of multiverses.
Or like stuff like what's behind me, whatever, or maybe like what's behind my door back there. No one's there to observe it, but so is there really anything there? And no one's ever going to observe what's behind that door right now. So is there a fact of the matter about what's behind the door right now?
Look. Well, I think we know what the title is going to be. Believing that there are things behind my door is religion, according to Sigmund Hossenfelder.
Yeah. When you have to say right now, you can say, oh, well, there is stuff behind your door 5 seconds from now after you open it.
Consequences. That's right. Physicists have come up with certain types of multiverses that can be falsified. The problem with these ideas is conceptually entirely different. In this case, the problem is that these are highly specific conjectures, and there is no reason to think we live in such multiverses to begin with.
Well, there is a reason. They're simpler and more parsimonious, and they explain the data. And maybe they do, maybe they don't. But it's not like there's just
That's
no
what the physicists claim, yeah.
Right. It's that
the requirement that a hypothesis must be falsifiable is certainly necessary to make the hypothesis scientific, but it is not sufficient. We will talk about this in more detail some other time. To sum it up for today,
let's see. Do we think that falsifiability is necessary for something to be a scientific hypothesis?
Yeah, well, it depends. Yeah, it depends a lot on how you define falsifiability. Like if you say, could there be any evidence after which the best explanation of all your evidence would be something that no longer believes in the original theory, then yeah, that's a perfectly agreeable requirement. But sometimes the falsifiability standard is much higher, and then it becomes unreasonable.
the multiverse is certainly an interesting idea, and it attracts a lot of public attention. There's nothing wrong with that. Entertainment has a value, and so has thought-stimulating discussion. But do not confuse the multiverse with science, because it is not.
Wow. So, Chris, have you abandoned your belief in the religious, pseudo-scientific multiverse?
Yes. I don't believe in dinosaurs anymore either.
Yes, you don't believe in dinosaurs or that there are currently things behind your door.
I do believe in dinosaur fossils, though.
Well, you believe
I've
that
seen them.
there are dinosaur fossils at various points. But the
Yes.
ones that we're not looking
A
at.
month ago when I was at...
Maybe
Yeah,
they exist.
yeah.
But whether they exist or not, that sure isn't science to think there are
Indeed.
dinosaur bones. Yeah. It's funny, like, just to see modern logical positivists just unaware how thoroughly log pause has been trashed in the philosophical community. It's funny that a lot of the people who think that science doesn't need philosophy are just logical positivists, as if trying as hard
Yeah.
as possible to demonstrate that science really, really does need philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and a lot of the great, like, early 20th century physicists were big into philosophy, like Einstein.
All right, well, now that we've cleared up that there's no evidence of dinosaurs except the holy texts that are believed on religious grounds, I think we can call it a night. All right.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.
See you all in the next.